Welcome to this episode of Building Legacy, a series that takes you inside the engine room of India's most enduring family businesses. From legacy to leadership, from emotion to execution, we unpack the delicate balance it takes to keep a family enterprising thriving across generations. In this episode, we focus on one of the most defining challenges perhaps for any family business. How do you prepare the next generation to lead? As global ambitions rise and generational values shift, the baton of leadership is no longer passed down. It must be earned and reimagined. To take this further, we're joined, as always, by Mr. Janmejaya Sinha, Chairman of BCG India. And we have a very special guest today, Muthu Murugappan, CEO and whole-time director at EID Parry. Now, of course, the Murugappa Group represents the fifth generation of the family, Mr. Murugappan. They are custodians of one of India's oldest business legacies. Founded in 1900 as a small banking and money lending business, today the Murugappa Group has grown into a diversified industrial powerhouse with a strong presence in sectors such as agri-solutions, financial services, engineering, auto components and beyond. So how does a legacy built over a century stay relevant in a world changing every minute? Let's start from there. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Murugappa. Thank you so much, Mr. Janmejaya, as always, for being here with us.
Pleasure.
Yeah, I'm going to start with you, sir, because, it's just so rare to have you on camera, so I'm excited about that and speaking about it. Do you think that the position in a family business and to get to that position is actually perhaps harder than people outside look at it?
So, Tamanna, thank you so much for having me on the show. So I think, one has to put in the hard yards to, progress in a family business. Different families approach it different ways. But I think if you really want to be, creating value, I think there's no shortcut. I think you need to go through the hard yards to actually get there.
Tell us a bit, set the context for this conversation about this group. Very understated. I think in the popular imagination, people don't realize how large and powerful and diversified it is.
Yeah, it's always interesting when three generations are almost involved with a business. In the Murugappan case, in the Murugappa case, they are now, he's the fifth generation, the fourth generation is also in business. And the third generation is just retired, a little while ago. Not just retired, in 5-10 years ago. And they are all present. So there are the values of the group. And then there has to be the energy in the group. The values of the group and the generational shifts cannot in any way impede the energy that India today requires. In terms of growth, in terms of diversification, in terms of new businesses to enter. And the family has been doing very well. It remains hidden, but roughly speaking, they would have a market cap today of around $50 billion, and it's not that apparent and that well known, So it's a big deal. If I look at this family versus some of the others that we've been talking with, they put these guys into the grind more before they rise, And, whether it's good or bad, they have to answer, But, you have to enter, you have to earn your stripes. And then you slowly graduate, as we were talking before the show began, he joined the board of Mahindra before his own family company, so that they have to explain, and you should ask him, how you feel.
We've always debated this. we've debated this within the family, and the two of us have debated it as well. The apprenticeship period, the length of the apprenticeship period. So, my career in the family business, a career at Murugappa started in 2007. I was at an FMCG company for 3 years prior to that. And I was appointed CEO of EID Parry in 2022. So, longish apprenticeship period. When you speak to peers, there's different views on that. But
What's
we've often
your view?
Slightly shorter would have been better. I think, it's only good to have built all of that muscle, say, by around the mid-30s. And then you really get on to a leadership role and then ultimately have the chance to be a very active board member. But I'm not at a significant disadvantage. It's just, I guess, a shorter one can also enable much more rigor. So let's just say it's about 10 years or so. Then I think a lot more rigor can be enabled, which builds a lot of muscle.
But let me come to your experience, because you spoke about your first stint with an FMCG company, Care.
That's right.
Before you came into the group, was it always a given that this stint at Care is something that I'm doing for a bit? Was this destination always clear to you? Was it pre-positioned?
Destination was largely clear. I mean, I did a high school internship. There was a gap between, finishing high school and university, a couple of months. So I think I did an internship in the group for about 3 or 4 months. And I think that that was more done to see if, I had any interest in all of this at all. And I think that was established.
How do you gauge that? If you turn up every day in your internship?
Yeah, I showed up every day, and I traveled with the team. I had certain outcomes which I had to generate. So all of that happened well, and I also came back home quite excited every day. And I went to university very excited about what the group was doing. So that was the destination. I think towards the end of university, there was conversation around the merits of, say, working outside sort of started happening, and that's why I took the plunge. I was interested in branding and marketing, and that's why Care. So it was a 3-year stint, and then I joined the group after that.
I think that the tricky bit over here for a lot of families, and I'm not talking about this one in particular, is to decide whether, for want of a better word, the heir apparent is actually well suited for the role or not. What has been your insight on this, Mr. Sinha?
But first, we should put it on both sides, Is the heir apparent interested?
Correct. That would be one of the criteria, I would suppose.
Yeah. So if you look at, I would think there are 6 or 7 people of his generation. And some of them are not in the business. So they have chosen to do other things. They have created their own business, or they manage money, they do other things, And so there is the first level choice, whether you enter the business, and then whether you want to enter as an owner manager, or do you want to actually sit on the board and have that different perspective. So those are real choices, right? I mean, and this family had a very interesting thing. They used to have an advisory board that used to actually evaluate the family members.
Oh, so you go through that rigor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there at any point for you an alternative in your mind of not necessarily having an executive role, but maybe being a custodian of the family business in another way? Was there at any point that plan A, plan B in your mind, or was it always clear?
So great question. Actually, COVID time was, I guess it was time for reflection for a lot of us. We were all at home, and I, for a fair amount of time, debated whether I should have an executive role or take a more a passive role and be a board member. In fact, Dr. Sinha and I debated it quite a bit. There was a lot of internal family debate as well, and then we chose the executive role. So yes, this dilemma was fairly recent.
What was the alternative, if at all? What else would you have done or would have liked to do?
I think the alternative was to be more a board member, so more be passive, be involved perhaps in certain projects and certain strategic projects.
Could I just interrupt? I don't think he means passive, So there are 3 ways you can actually work. You can actually be an executive in the company, or you could be an active board member as a chairman, where you actually employ CEOs and you have a holding company which you actually direct in the role of a chairman or in the role of an active board member, which is different from a passive, an independent director of some other company. This is because you are a promoter group.
Correct.
So you're never really just an independent director, right? I mean, you're a promoter group member on the board. And so to learn to be an active owner on the board is not so simple.
Yeah.
It is distinct from being an independent director, Because if you really look at a board, it basically does performance and conformance. You have to ensure as being on the board, because you have fiduciary responsibility,
Correct.
that you don't fall foul of the laws of the land. And then as a board member, you allocate capital, you choose you agree strategy, you hire the CEO, you pay the CEO, you monitor the strategy, you monitor some risks, you take big decisions of JVs and M&As, etc. So those are active jobs, on the board. It is, then you can be an executive, actually doing sales, or you can be doing marketing, which becomes a little different. But I just was objecting to his use of the term passive,
So, fair enough. I think thanks for the clarification. So, I guess the way I meant it was, not day-to-day involved in terms of, having executive responsibility for the business.
But that is something that you enjoy, and you
yes.
love
So
challenge.
I guess that's the role that I took up. I think it is a lot more involved and intense. So it took a little bit of settling down, I will be honest. But I think certainly enjoy, and I've learned a lot. I think the knowledge I have about the company and the people and where we're headed, I think it's really chalk and cheese compared to if I would have had a non-executive role.
Perhaps the lengthy apprenticeship has worked out favorably in this context.
So I think the apprenticeship, I guess, always continues. When you're running a company, I think that is you're really put to the test.
Yeah.
So I think the apprenticeship certainly continues.
But there are various paths, and this is something that we were discussing earlier as well. The path to the board for family members, when it is a large business family like yours, need not be that one path or a very traditional, conventional path, isn't it?
No, I don't believe so, and I think you're very right. And especially in the times that we live in, I think there are perhaps multiple paths to the board. As Dr. Sinha was saying, there are members of the family who are not involved in the business. My brother's a filmmaker, remains a shareholder filmmaker. There's members who are entrepreneurs as well. Outside of the business, they have some roles in the business. There's members of the family who have, more project-oriented roles or, more strategy-oriented roles. And some like me who have executive roles. So I think the family has really accepted this very nicely. And perhaps a lot of Indian families will going forward, because I think that's the times that we live in. Your show is called Building Legacy. I think legacies are going to be created on different paths and different journeys going forward. I mean, if I was to look back at our own example, legacies were perhaps largely created within the business. I think we're really moving into an era where legacies perhaps could get created with the business or within the business. Legacies may be created outside of the business as well, but I think they will all remain trustees of the family.
Yeah. What are the lessons here which are important, Mr. Sinha? Because, if we are addressing right now an audience of people who are aspiring to build a legacy in their businesses, continue their family businesses over generations.
First, let's have some fun.
Okay, always.
Let's put him on the spot a bit, right?
Oh, earlier you can get away with it, so I hand it over to you.
So, his father is in the business, his uncle is in the business, cousins are there, How easy is it to deal with your father? How easy is it to deal with your cousins? Do you lack autonomy? Do you have to sort it out at dinner at home, or do you sort it out in the boardroom? How do you deal with some of this? People would like to know,
So, different ways of sorting different things out. I think you've all grown up around each other, so I guess you all know where and how everyone is wired. But there is the underlying value system, I think, which everyone in the family gets. Of course, there's always going to be differences of opinion, disagreements. Sometimes a lot of agreement as well. I mean, no one specific answer. I think some of these are done over a game of tennis or golf. Some of these have to be done in the office. Some of these are perhaps done where on vacation in Kunur in the Nilgiris. So I guess you got to pick the place, pick the time, and I think you'll have to really pick the tone of discussion as well. I don't think there's one playbook. this is muscle which you build out of experience and just out of self-awareness, really.
Yeah. Is there a mechanism in place for resolution, or is it at the end of the day the senior most takes the final call and it ends there?
Not exactly. I think we've always Dr. Sinha has been on the advisory board, so we've always had the benefit of having very trusted members of the board or trusted advisors to the family. We've often used their wisdom and their intervention as well, and that's also helped on a lot of occasions. So we do turn to that oftentimes.
I wonder when there is, in this scenario that you've described, and thank you for that question on my behalf, but in the scenario that you've described, there will also be professionals in play apart from family members in key positions. How does that dynamic work? If you'd like to answer that.
So I think we were very early to professionalize. I think at the turn of the century, we professionalized, one of the first family businesses to do so. So I think we've all operated in that environment. A lot of us have worked outside as well, so we really understand. And I think that was one of the benefits of working outside. You understand what it is to work in a professional environment. So no one really brings an attitude to work saying, hey, I'm anyway going to get to take the final call. There is a lot of consensus building which is done. We've often had professional managers and professional leaders also prevailing on certain decision making, because they brought very good and very sound logic to the table. So I think issues are really dealt fact-based, merit-based, and I think that's how we've largely progressed.
My own perspective on this is that, firstly, the next generation of a family has a pretty tough time in the business because they have the name and there are expectations, and they're always trying to live up to their name because everyone is saying, they have it easy, and they then put pressure on themselves, right? And then even in the flip side is also true. If supposing I'm his boss in the Murugappa Group, I know in the back pocket he holds shares of the company, So it does create a little bit of actual tension in that. But then the people who have spent time, also learn to work with the family, and they are respected, they know how to navigate the family. Now, every company, you need to navigate the company. Whether it's BCG, you need to navigate our own selves, within a company. So it's not that in any company you don't need to navigate.
No, but I suppose a family or a business that has that kind of legacy over time also knows how to treat the professionals who are coming in and the value that they bring. I don't think it's a clear black and white. And any perspective on this? Did you ever have a boss in your journey up there who you felt was a little hesitant to take you on, or was that never the case?
No, never the case. I think I've had maybe 3 bosses in the group. I think they were all senior leaders, either directors on the corporate board or MDs of companies. So never hesitant. I guess they knew that we were brought up, in that environment of professionalism. I agree with what Dr. Sinha said as well, but I think they were comfortable to take me on. And you respectfully disagree with them and on certain topics, so on and so forth. But I'd agree with Dr. Sinha. I think by they build that experience of learning to work with the family and work with the group. For example, on a certain issue, a professional leader would straight away, and if there was let's just say there was a situation at the factory, it was a labor situation or whatever, and he'd brief me, and he'd sort of straight away say, I think we need to do a briefing to your uncle as well, because he'd be concerned about this issue. So he knows perhaps, what are some of the areas which he also likes to watch closely. So I think that experience anyway gets built.
Just, your take on running a large business and building a legacy in modern times, when traditional wisdom would tell you, let your work speak for yourself, let your balance sheet speak for yourself, let your company's results speak for yourself. But we're in times where you have to speak a little louder than that. You have to be out there, your brands, your logos in the collective memory. That is something that the group has always shied away from. Do you think that's the right path going forward in this day and age?
So I think, we do what's necessary. I mean, you would see us doing earnings, you would see us, sometimes there are events wherein the group participates in, there's not too many consumer facing businesses in the group. There are some, there's, a lot of stuff done on the advertising, on the promotional side. So I think we do what is required.
Individual leaders, we're living in a time, and especially with so many new age businesses coming in, where the promoter / leader is a brand in themselves, and they really put themselves out there.
Yeah. So, I think we like it a little understated. I think we're comfortable with that. I think I think it helps us focus on what we're meant to do, and which is create value in the businesses. I think we've had a lot of success stories. We've had some which haven't worked out as well. So I think we're comfortable with being understated. But I would say, compared to in the past, we're certainly a little bit more out there than what we would have been maybe a decade and a half ago.
Let me ask you an unfair question, and I'm telling you it's unfair before I even ask it.
He loves doing this.
That's why I love having him on the show.
So, do you think in a normal family which doesn't have a business, you can be closer to your cousins than in a family where you have a business also?
Wow, that was a googly. It's a nice one.
I mean, the answer really depends. It's a tricky question. I guess the pressures of the business and differing views in the workplace can certainly impact familial relationships. But I think it's very important to have very strong open lines of communication, because otherwise they will break down. Because at the end of the day, there's the workplace, and then there's home and there's family as well, and it's not easy when familial relationships are strained, and that takes a toll when we're not in the workplace. It certainly takes a toll in the workplace as well. So there is truth to your question, but I think on the flip side, I think there's perhaps that much more you need to do in terms of building familial relations, building strong communication, so that these bonds remain intact, because a lot of cousins in all family businesses would have grown up together. So you've literally been to school together, you've played as children together, you've grown up through your college days together, and then the business being in a family business can change things. But it's very important to work on.
We had that discussion long ago in one of the early episodes, that if you look at Europe, families have tried to stay together. In India, we have created conglomerates, so different members look after different businesses.
Parts of
Actually, their family for a long time has actually been European in a sense. They've had one head managing all the different companies. Of course, the companies having some professional CEOs, some family members, etc. So in a sense, a more evolved kind of European conglomerate, but they have had a conglomerate. They've had multiple companies, not just one company where a lot of members are part of. But it's different from just some of the other families we met, where each side has taken a different part and they manage that part alone.
Any advice that you would like to give either to the next generation? I don't know if the next generation is already being groomed, generation number 6.
Oh, generation number 6 is, some of them have had their first day of kindergarten earlier this week. So, I mean, yeah.
I'm sure there's
it's going to be a while. But yeah, I think the oldest in Gen 6 is 10. And yeah, as I said, some of them have started kindergarten earlier this week.
Fair enough, but is that, like I said, we're in a very different day and age. So would those expectations be very different, or their experience be very different in this family versus, say, yours?
I think they're very likely to be different, and we talked of these different paths and creation of legacies on different chosen paths. I think that's how I think our legacy is going to get built going forward. There will be the core Murugappa legacy, which will continue. The businesses will continue, but I think legacies will be built very differently. With this generation as well, yes, perhaps, and I don't think I think a lot of us as parents, amongst cousins, are going to probably give these children a whole lot more, independence. Not that we didn't have the independence, but I think they're going to grow up in a completely different era.
Yeah.
So it really remains to be seen, but probably will be very different. I'm sure we'll be around to talk about it when at the right time.
Yeah. We really look forward. Thank you so much to both of you for joining in, and what an excellent conversation. Great insights into what it takes to build the legacy of a business which has lasted 150 years and going strong. Thank you so much for joining us.